I'm Lauren White. I'm a qualified sexologist and I am a bisexual woman. In this episode, we are going all the way back to 4 years ago when I spoke candidly on my podcast about being bi. Yes, the world of podcasting heard it first. Today, I'm going to give you the backstory and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what has happened and what has changed in the last 4 years since I recorded that episode. If you are watching this on YouTube, I didn't have a video recording of that podcast episode back in 2021. If you want to listen to it and get up to speed, the link is in the show notes. I'm so honored to be sitting here with you today and to have the privilege to be able to look back at what has happened in the last 4 years since I recorded that episode about being bisexual. And I want to give a bit of backstory because I might have mentioned it on socials at the time, but it wasn't included in the episode itself. That episode was bizarre how it came about. I was lying in bed. It was close to 10 o'clock at night on a random Tuesday or weekday night. And all of a sudden, the voice in my head was, get up and record this, get up and speak to it and put it out into the world. It was like I was being compelled to get up and record this episode. There was no planning involved. And today, in order to look back and sit here with you and create this episode, I sat at the cafe and I didn't admittedly re-listen to it because it holds a lot of emotion for me. But what I did do, I was like, okay, the thing that I can do that feels like it's within my power and my grasp right now is to read the transcription of that episode. And I'm really almost dumbfounded. I was like, oh, this episode is not like my memory of it at all. It actually reads so eloquently, so beautifully, so candidly. I remember it was candid, but I thought my memory of it was that there were parts of it that were just like a hot mess. And that's not what I took in when I re experienced the episode, albeit by reading it, but still, I just want to give my former self some credit because that was a risk that I took. And it was a risk I took personally and professionally. Something that happened back then was my mind, I had to go to base survival and say to myself, when everyone who doesn't already know this finds this out, even if all of them reject me, I will still be more than okay. And I thought I just had to do it. I just had to put it out there and I had to risk not being loved. I had to risk having someone say, I no longer love you or I no longer want to be associated with you. And I took that risk. And I did things almost like a kind of manifestation of sorts, like what they say about manifestation practices, which is you do the thing in order to be the thing and get the thing. And I recorded the episode and released it practically that week. I gave it to the podcast team and then I started calling my family and who I thought mattered, who mattered most to me, and told them what was happening and why I needed to speak to them about it. And it was just like getting it out there. Like I just felt compelled to just get it out there and to move on with my life and to just find out sooner rather than later, would anyone reject me? Would I not be loved? I just had to find out. I was like, I want my life to move on. I want this part of me to not be hidden or secret, which is something that I talked about in the original episode, the difference between private and secret. And it actually went quite smoothly. And I recognize that that is another aspect of privilege, is that my life wasn't threatened by putting this out there. The most challenging part was probably just navigating being on the end of other people's projections and repressions, if I can put it that way. And sorry, I have to be a little bit opaque about this. I can't really get more specific. Telling people more about your sexuality that doesn't necessarily fit so much inside a box, particularly when you're of a certain generation. I imagine it's very different for someone who's 20 nowadays to someone who's 40, because of the age of the people that you're associated with. But it was just really interesting the kind of questions I got and just some of the prying that I got. And I could feel, it's almost like I could feel some people's own desires not being met. And that was coming through the lines of questioning. And I just had to be so nimble with my responses and my answers to those questions. And it was interesting. It was like a mini case study in human psychology and erotic repression that I got to be exposed to. Not that I needed any more exposure, but it was a very interesting set of circumstances, and it really allowed me to stand up for myself and be sovereign in the face of quite patriarchal lines of questioning that are aimed at tearing you down and aimed at making you feel small. So that was really fascinating. It was really, really fascinating. And what's happened since then is I've basically been living my life as a bisexual woman who's able to access safe spaces in Australia. And it's been fun and it's been enjoyable and it's been pleasurable. And at times it's been really testing. It's been testing in that it's shown me where I have an invitation to open up a little bit more, particularly in the space of strangers or people that are not well known to me, and to really just hold my own and put myself out there. Because in person, in my opinion, is always, always going to supersede online in terms of quality and how quickly you can read people and get that sense of how connected you are. And that's something I really want to clear up on today's episode is, and I actually mentioned it. I'm really surprised I actually mentioned it in the episode in 2021, but your sexuality is not about how much you act on it or what you do, how you do act on it. And that's something I want to re-emphasize 4 years later. Like it just has stood the test of time and it will keep standing the test of time. It's not declaring to yourself, admitting to yourself, acknowledging within yourself that you're bisexual. And you don't have to use a label. It's just for the sake of brevity that you are bisexual, that you're interested in other people, that you're curious about your eroticism. None of that means that you have to go and take an action on it to prove it. That might be part of it for you. That might be a really important part of it for you. Really, what I've found is so much of the liberation in conversations, intellectual intimacy, uh, erotic intimacy that doesn't involve touch. And I've been in some really refined spaces that allow for that and allows me to feel really satiated. And I want you to know that that is available for you as well if you want to explore more of yourself, that 99% of it isn't about what you do or the actions that you take. What I do want to say on that note is you do need to take action, though. There needs to be something that allows you, permits you to express yourself, to express this aspect of you and your identity. It can't just be, yep, I admit it. Nothing, absolutely nothing changes in your life, who you're friends with, who you socialize with, what you read, um, your activism. You can't just have everything stay put because just that admission, that's one really powerful step. But there needs to be something from there that really helps you to expand. Sex is expansive. Sexuality is expansive. Eroticism is expansive. And it's about who and what you immerse yourself in order to get that sense of release. It's not necessarily physical and what you do in the bedroom, although we deeply enjoy that. So much of it is about what you let yourself do that's connected to art and people and intimacy and conversations and the spaces that you go to. But in the last 4 years, there's been some erotic journeying, and it's been really fun. Like I said, it's been really fun. It's been eye-opening. I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned a lot about my relationship with Ed. It's become even more secure in the last 4 years because since that episode, we've done a lot of work together on our relationship and on intimacy through seeing our embodied counselor, through getting a second place that we had for a year over 2021 and 2022. We've done a renovation together. We have been really working alongside each other in our own exploration. Ed's been doing some of his own men's work. It's been absolutely fascinating. And we've gone to deeper levels than had we have not done anything at all. We were never at risk, but to me, just everything being ho hum, okay, or fine is a risk. Like to me, that is red alert. If things are just always the same, ticking along, I was like, that's not good enough for me, especially when we don't have an excuse or a reason for things to keep playing out that way. We've had our babies, they're growing up, and we want to role model for them a really healthy relationship. And we want to role model really healthy connections to intimacy, romance, love, and sexuality. And so Ed's been walking alongside me, doing his own journeying. I've been doing my journeying. Sometimes we come together, sometimes we go apart. And it really feels like it's only just the beginning. Something that I want to emphasize on this episode is what I know to be true now, like unequivocally, is I feel more alive. I feel safer. I feel more myself in queer spaces than I do in hetero straight spaces. And the same goes for entrepreneurship as well. I need that sense of community, even if it's fleeting, even if it's not for long. It's in these spaces that I truly feel myself, that I don't have to mask. And just being on the hetero kind of married fence and acknowledging that I'm bisexual, you start to see how many traps there are set up for heterosexuals, like the lack of freedom, how it's all about ticking boxes, being seen a certain way by your friends, and it starts to get really stale and really uninteresting. The queer people I know have much richer, more fulfilling, and interesting lives because they've gone deep into who they are and they've had to love themselves regardless of whether anyone reciprocates that love or not. They have gone through rejection of the highest order and they had to dig so deep on themselves. And the outcome of that is that they have a bright, color filled life that isn't shrouded in shame. Like they've had to face that shame head on. I've had to face my shame head on. And what it does is it makes you more nuanced, it makes you more resilient, it makes you more powerful, and it positions you to really celebrate diversity in life, that you're not always wanting or willing to sit in an echo chamber and just listen to the same people that are at the same level as you and everything's just the same, rinse and repeat. It really fulfills a sense of aliveness in me where life feels a bit monochrome. And granted, there are always parts of life that are going to be a bit boring or repetitive, but I want to try and curb that as much as possible to really feel like I'm living my life and I'm in my own life. And I've got some incredible stories, not stories to necessarily tell the world, but stories and memories that I know that I hold. And that's what my sexuality has given me over the last 13 years in particular. And I'm excited that this isn't the nowhere near the end. Nowhere near the end. In fact, I think the volume is just getting turned up. And I want you to know that there is so much available for you, particularly if you identify right now or you present yourself to the world as heterosexual and you're in a committed long-term relationship with a person who identifies as a man. I know what that's like. I know how tricky it can be. I know the challenges that can come up from that. And I want you to know that you're not alone and that there are ways and that there are spaces that you can feel as though you have expressed this part of yourself without placing any sort of threat on your relationship. That there are ways that you can satisfy this aspect in yourself, really satisfy your curiosity, that you can express as part of yourself while still honoring the commitment that you've made. There are so many ways that you can do this, but it needs to have a social aspect. You need to be able to connect with someone or people that are outside of your relationship with your partner. Because nurturing this is just for you. And it's really important that you find yourself and you find your personal power and pleasure just for you without distraction. And most certainly without judgment or shame. Events and groups and clubs around expressing your bisexuality, they can come and go. And at the time of recording this, there's a pause on one of the clubs that I'm a member of. So it's really important that you keep your finger on the pulse to find out what is out there and what's available. And if there is something that you can go to in person, go, because there's no guarantee that there will be another event, another retreat, another social night out. This is all about you not submitting to saying later, later, when, and just going for it because you're alive now and whatever you choose to do will give you a complete top up of aliveness and expansion. Every time I leave an aligned space, I feel so much more awake and turned on, like there's electricity in my body, and it makes me want to go out and create and share it with more people. That's what these spaces do for you. They completely fill you up with everything that feels good, everything that is powerful and pleasurable, so that you go out into the world and let it multiply. And now I want to extend an invitation to you. If you're a woman in business who wants to activate her erotic power, to feel rich in love and be electrified in intimacy, it is time to unleash your potency. When we work together in my one-time session, you will become a walking turn-on that flows all the way into your business. Because when you get real about your sexuality, when you have a safe space to express it and be radically honest about it, you get to crack open to receive everything that it is that you want in business, but couldn't grasp until you finally addressed the thing that you weren't ready to admit. This is going to change everything for you, your relationship, and your business. Go to laurenwhite.com.au/session to secure your one-time call.